Yeah, some of y'all like, man, I would rather have the billions and die at 50. But what 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 purpose does that serve? You worked your whole life to accumulate all this wealth, and then you don't get even to get to enjoy it. Like, you worked your whole life to amass all these relationships and the friendships. I tell you this, another person that comes to mind again. Like I said, I'm gonna read a lot of, I'm gonna quote a lot of scripture and quotes and stuff like that. But King Solomon, King Solomon was the perfect person to look at when we talked about the social wealth that he he's accrued, and the financial wealth that he's accrued. But really, everything that he did up until later on in his life was transactional. And we'll talk about, like, I'll reference him a lot in these teachings, but you'll see where he finally says that all the things that I've done, all the wealth that I've accumulated, all the social wealth that I've accumulated, all the financial wealth that I've accumulated, all of it is vanity. All of it was for naught because I really didn't understand how to how for it to not be just transactional. You know what I mean? I just chased money. I chased this financial wealth. It really wasn't a social wealth to go with it. It really wasn't an emotional wealth, which I'll talk about later on also. But there wasn't any of those things. All these things working together in his life. It was just he was focused on the one thing. And the Bible said he was the richest man to ever live. But he didn't really have um, like a family life. He didn't really have close friends. He didn't have all these things. He had advisors. He had um, a, a, a 700 concubine and like 1,000 wives. He had all these things that he's accumulated, but there wasn't really any social wealth where there was actual relationships there. So like I said, we'll talk about that as well. Um, but yeah, like, if you don't have if you don't have social wealth and you don't understand those things, and if you don't take care of your physical wealth as well, just accruing and the clip and amassing all these resources and amassing all these friends and having all these things, it's vanity. Like Solomon would say, it's empty. It means nothing because you're not going to be able to enjoy it. You're not going to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. One of the other wealths that I talked about, that I mentioned, was the emotional wealth. Like, we live in a world right now where um, we're talking about mental health. Mental health is talked about a lot right now, and it should be. But I think just as much as you need to take care of yourself physically, it's just as important to take care of yourself mentally. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is reading plans. Like, what are we reading? What are we allowing in our minds? What are we talking about? What are we listening to? All those things are going to play a part into your emotional wealth. Emotional wealth just really means that um, are you think what are you thinking about? Are you listening more to the news about COVID, and it's playing on your emotions, or because it's making you fearful, it's making you worry, it's making you panic, or are you just taking it for what it is, as a um, as a barometer of what not to do? Okay, they said wear a mask, so I'm going to wear a mask, but I'm not going to allow myself to get caught up in a whirlwind of things that's going around because that's happening with COVID. Um, we're talking about job loss, right? Am I fearful that I can't recover from this job loss, or or a bad relationship? Like, we're going to talk about all these things and how it's important to actually take care of your emotional wealth before you even jump into a relationship, or before you even um, jump into this business plan. Like, how does the emotional wealth impact your physical wealth? How does your emotional wealth impact your mental wealth? How does your emotional health impact your social wealth? You know what I mean, how does it impact your financial wealth? All those things are important, and we're going to talk about all those things, because if you enter into a business agreement, or if you are emotionally unstable, how does that affect your money? How does that affect your business? How does that affect you on your job, right? So we're gonna talk about all those things. The other thing that I think is super important is spiritual wealth. Why is important? Why is spiritual wealth super important? Because it's what do you believe in? What do you believe in when everything is going crazy? When everything is going haywire? Like I said, I referenced COVID. Like, like what are you standing on? What are you believing in? Stock market crashes. Real estate is dying. Businesses are going belly up. We talking about thousands and thousands and thousands, maybe millions of people getting laid off. And we're talking about people, hundreds and thousands of people are actually dying. So, what what are you believing in? Where's your faith? What is your faith in to help you get through these times? How do you get through these times? So, spiritual wealth is going to be super important because it's really the driving factor of what keeps us going, what wakes us up in the morning. Without spiritual wealth, for me, I I wouldn't survive. I wouldn't be able to survive. Like everything, all the tragedies that we go through in life, all the trials and tribulations that we go through in life, and for us to keep getting up and to keep moving. And I know I'm going to talk about my black people real quick, but all the things that we actually endured um, through life, it, we had to have some kind of strong foundation and belief in our spirituality. You know what I mean? Whether that's God or whether that's Yeshua. You know what I mean? Whether that's the Quran or Buddhism, whatever it is, whatever your spirituality is, whatever it is that you believe in. For us, it's Christianity, but whatever it is that you believe in, I want to talk about that. You know what I mean? That spiritual wealth is super important to your well-being and your overall well-being. Um, and like, what are you meditating on? That's super important to me in your spiritual wealth as well. Like, what are you meditating on? Like, do you have a relationship with God, with the Created One? Do you have a relationship, that relationship with Him? Are you having open dialogues with Him where you're actually speaking and praying, and then you're waiting for Him to direct your path? Or are you really just a monologue where you're speaking and then you're getting up and just moving, and not really actually consulting and waiting for Him to actually tell you what to do? Are you moving on your own? Are you a Saul? Like I said, we're going to talk about that. A lot of biblical people in these shows, but not just biblical people, but great men, you know what I mean, who actually apply these principles and actually helped us grow. The whole purpose of this Wealth Wednesdays is to help us obtain the wealth, the abundance of wealth that's out there in these areas, the abundance of the I want you to have the abundance of health, right? Which means that you can get up and you can enjoy your life, you can enjoy your kids, you can enjoy your wife, your marriage. Because again, really, that's the audience that we're talking to, just marriage. How do we become a whole person? How do we become financially stable? How do we become emotionally stable? How do we become physically fit and physically stable? How do we become socially stable? How do we accumulate all these things? The number one thing I would say, or the number one important principle in this thing is your time wealth. Like, I think your time wealth is what puts all these things together. Like, what are you doing with your time? What are we doing with our time? Right? If I am not spending time with my siblings, or if I'm not spending time with my kids, or if I'm not spending time with my wife, it's not. If I'm not spending time thinking about how I'm going to accumulate wealth, if I'm not spending time thinking about what I put in my body, if I'm not thinking about all these things, or actually spending time to get better in these areas, none of these things can get connected, right? So I think your time wealth is the one. I can't put in order which one is the importance, but for me, I think time management is really important. And what you'll see as we talk about those things individually, as I isolate each one of these topics by itself, and we dig deeper and dive deeper into why it's super important to actually focus in one of these 6 areas. You'll see why we need every single last one of these things to be functional, and we need a wealth of all these things. I know y'all looking like, man, it's only 24 hours in a day. I can't do everything I need to do in 24 hours. Yes, you can. It's time management. It's about time wealth. What are we doing with our times? Are we prioritizing? Are we putting the game plan together? What are our goals? Are we writing things down? All these things, to me, speaks to time and how we utilize it. We all have 24 hours in a day. You're probably, most of us, or sleep, almost 8 of those hours. Some of us actually work 8 of those hours, so that's 16 hours. You also got 8 other hours during the day that you can utilize. What are we doing with those? What are we doing with those? Is it going to focus in on our finances? Is it going to focus on our emotional state? Is it going to helping us in our spiritual wealth? You know what I mean? Are we working out? So that is what we're going to be talking about, utilizing our time to make sure that we are actually focusing on all of these areas in our life. So that was introductory to Wealth Wednesdays, y'all. I hope y'all join us on this journey, join me on this journey. I'm super excited about this segment. I'm super excited to dive back in with you guys, giving you guys all this content on what I've been learning, helping us grow as whole people, helping our marriages grow. So we are having a divorce, affair-proof, solid marriage, but not just that, that we are actually functioning and as a full person in our relationships and in our finances and really just thriving. So y'all know anything about us, that's all we want from all of our people, for everybody who listens to us, is really to pour into them for the things that we've learned over the course of our marriage and our relationship, and just really just the course of our lives and the experiences that we've had. So that's what we're all about. Just others. That's what we're all about. We're about others. We're about being open, transparent, honest, encouraging others to do the things that they want to do, keeping it real, and really just being spontaneous. So that's what we're all about. That's what the Love Book is all about. I wanted to say I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Till next Wednesday when we talk about Wealth Wednesday. Tune in also on Thursdays, Fridays. We're going to have something different for you guys every day of the week. I'm super excited about those things. But until next time, remember, love is a decision. So F your feelings. I love you guys. God bless. Stay loving, everybody. Bye.